And welcome to Hannity. Tonight, the search for the nearly 300 missing Nigerian schoolgirls taken 4 weeks ago by the terrorist group Boko Haram continues. Now, the Department of Defense confirms to Fox News that they have begun flying surveillance flights to help find the kidnapped girls. Now, this news comes as the Nigerian government says it is exploring all options to ensure these girls are released. And while we hope and we pray that they are safely returned to their families, my next guest, like myself, has taken issue with the Twitter campaign launched by the left. Now, Mark Steyn, in a recent article posted on his website, objected to the First Lady, Michelle Obama, posting this picture on her Twitter account with the hashtag Bring Back Our Girls. Now, Steyn titled his piece with the hashtag Bring Back Our Balls. And he went on to write, quote, "It's hard not to have total contempt for the political culture that thinks the picture at right is a useful contribution to rescuing 276 schoolgirls kidnapped by jihadist savages in Nigeria. Yet some pajama boy at the White House evidently felt getting the First Lady to pose with this week's hashtag on Western impotence would reflect well upon the administration. The horrible thing is they may be right. Michelle showed she cared on social media, and that's all that matters, isn't it?" Now, as I said last night, and I'll say it again today, terrorists, they likely don't read Twitter, and even if they did, it would have zero impact on them, and the only thing that they'd react to is a bullet in their brain. Here with reaction, the author of Lights Out, columnist, author, fill-in for Rush Limbaugh, Mark Steyn. How are you?
Hey, good to be with you, Sean.
Well, it's garnered a lot of attention, but I think the reason it has is because you have struck a chord. This is what, an exercise in feel-goodism over what would be effective? Why did you take such a strong stand?
Because I think there's a danger of communicating to the world the United States is not a serious power anymore. You know, when celebrities do it, when Alec Baldwin or Beyonce issues a tweet about whatever their pet concern happens to be, celebrity activists are doing it to put pressure on government. Mrs. Obama is the government. She's the wife of the government. And the only point to doing this would be if the United States was involved in some way of actually bringing back these girls. These girls, someone, if you're going to say bring back our girls, somebody has to bring them back. And realistically, that means it's American Special Forces, French Special Forces, British Special Forces, Israeli Special Forces, or maybe a couple of others. There's nobody else who can get these girls back alive. So unless you're actually doing something to bring them back, this tweet is less than useless because it communicates to the world that you're not a serious power.
They're also showing total contempt. The terrorists went out there and said, sure, we'll give you the girls back, but you got to release our terrorists that you have in prison. I agree with you. It's going to take Israeli, French, Great Britain, U.S. Special Forces to get these girls back, and at great risk. This would not be an easy military operation by any means. Here's the next question. What should the U.S. involvement be, in your estimation?
Well, you know, to be honest, Nigeria, I'm a child of empire, and Nigeria is part of the British Commonwealth. And I think David Cameron, who also posed with this pathetic, useless hashtag, actually ought to be taking the lead here. I think it's what, in the old days, they would have called his sphere of influence. By some accounts, these girls have been taken upriver to Cameroon and to Chad. So you could be operating in 3 countries. And my preference here would be for the British SAS in alliance with the Americans and the French to actually go get these girls and kill the guys who took them. I've no use for Tony Blair, but about a decade ago, Tony Blair, when some members of the Royal Irish Regiment were captured in Sierra Leone, Tony Blair sent the SAS in there to get those guys back and to kill the people who kidnapped them. Yeah. And actually getting the girls back and killing the people who kidnapped them is the point, not actually starting a great social media campaign.
Listen, if we could rescue these girls and get them back to their parents, if we could use, I would suggest we only use overwhelming force. We need the element of surprise somehow, and that means our intelligence, which is already, as I understand it now, being used there. And we had a reasonable success that our guys aren't going to get hurt in the process. I think it would be a worthwhile exercise because it is a battle against terrorists that are not only against these Nigerian schoolgirls, they are declaring war on the entire world, advancing their ideology. but that understanding seems to be missing in the administration, Mark.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, this group has killed 2,500 people so far this year. So basically, they killed the death toll of 9/11. As not in big spectacular ways by flying planes into skyscrapers, but they ramp up the death toll of 9/11 in the first 3 or 4 months of the year. And I accept, by the way, I entirely accept the argument that other people would make that this is nothing to do with us, we got no interest in this, we should stay out of this. But in that case, don't pretend to care. You know, when Neville Chamberlain, after Hitler started his monkey business in the 1930s, and Neville Chamberlain said, who cares about Czechoslovakia is a faraway country of which we know little, he was at least honest in his indifference. The G7 leaders, the First Lady of the United States, should not be standing there as if the hashtag is part of American foreign policy.
It's pathetic, but so is America's reaction in the Ukraine and in Crimea. And the Iranians don't seem particularly nervous about the United States. And, you know, the utter hypocrisy of arming the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt with F-16s is you know, astoundingly stupid to me. But doesn't it all go back to the president's speech in Cairo, the official position to this day of the first Fort Hood shooting is this was workplace violence, man-caused disasters, overseas contingencies. Isn't this a naivete about the enemy that we're up against? To me, it's all related. To you?
Well, I think it's a little more than naivety because essentially, Sean, the president has spent the last 5 years saying, who are you going to believe, me or your lying eyes? The official position of the president and the vice president is that Al-Qaeda is dead and General Motors is alive. And the fact is that during all the time they've been using their lame slogan, Al-Qaeda-affiliated groups have spread throughout North Africa, West Africa, East Africa, in Syria, where the president drew his supposed red line and then pretended it was, quote, the world's red line, or whatever useless phrase he used. Iran and its client has just won. Bashar Assad is back secure in his presidential palace, and he's a client of the Iranians and of Putin, and they're sitting pretty, and the president's red line has bled away to a big nothing. Because in the end, having a fabulous tweet is not enough.
You know, I watched the left's reaction to this, and they're shocked that yourself and people like me, Rush Limbaugh was made fun of by Jon Stewart last night. It's typical, it's predictable. Tell me what this hashtag is going to do to help these girls. If we're going to rescue them...
Well, exactly. I mean,
well, watch the tape. Watch the tape.
Stewart
and then I'll get your response.
So that's our choice. Malala or Rush, the quivering rage heap who is apparently desperately trying to extinguish any remaining molecule of humanity that might still reside in the Chernobyl-esque Superfund cleanup site that was his soul. Who should we choose? Well, I don't know. Why don't we tweet our votes to hashtag you, Rush?
What is his position? What is this going to do to save these girls? Is Jon Stewart going to support the idea of special forces going in to rescue them? I would support it if we had a reasonable chance of success and we used overwhelming force against terrorists. But I don't know if the White House agrees with me.
I think I'd like to get those two. I'd like to get those 276 girls back, Sean, and hire them as replacement writers for Jon Stewart, because they couldn't do a worse job than his writing staff if that so-called hashtag is the best thing he can come up with. Look, I'm serious here. I'd like to get those girls back alive. As I said, I regard them as my Commonwealth cousins, and I want them back alive. But a tweet and a hashtag isn't going to get them back alive. So Jon Stewart should get serious. It's not about Rush. It's not about you. It's not about me. It's about the president of the world's superpower reducing himself to a tweet, because that's cool. Well, a tweet works for Alec Baldwin, and a tweet works for Beyonce and Jay-Z. A tweet does not work for the foreign policy of the United States.
Hashtag get back our balls. All right. Well said. Mark Steyn, good to see you. Thank you.